Welcome back, everyone, to Terror and Urban Myths. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoy these explorations into the chilling unknown, don't forget to subscribe and give us a like. It really helps us bring you more of these stories. Tonight, we're going to the heart of Spain, to a small town called Mondariz in Pontevedra. We're diving into a legend that's seeped into the local culture there. The haunting story of the Mondariz cemetery. We've got a first-hand account from a young man, Juan Luis. He ran into something unsettling during what seemed like an ordinary vacation.
You know, what really gets me about Juan Luis's story is that it starts so typically. A group of friends on vacation, exploring a new city. They head out to the countryside for a change of pace. They choose Mondariz. It's a charming town, immediately puts you at ease.
It's almost like a false sense of security, right? Everything seems peaceful and picturesque. It's like it lulls you into a sense of normalcy before things get dark.
Exactly. They're staying at a hotel near a wooded area. You could even say it's idyllic. Then, one evening, they decide to take a walk through those woods. Nothing out of the ordinary so far.
But then, as they go deeper, they find something unexpected. A cemetery hidden in the trees. And it's not the kind of well-maintained, serene cemetery you might picture. This one's desolate, overgrown, almost like it's being swallowed by the woods. Even the tall iron gate seems to whisper warnings, and the graves themselves are a mess.
Yeah. The cemetery's state of neglect, it's palpable. You really feel a sense of abandonment. It's eerie and unsettling. And here's where they have their first encounter, the one that foreshadows all the unsettling things to come.
They see a man. He's clearly distressed, practically fleeing the cemetery, like something terrifying is right behind him.
He's urgently warning them to hide. He talks about some impending doom. But, like young people often do, they dismiss his fears. Maybe they think he's just a local eccentric or that he's playing a prank.
It makes you wonder, what did he see? What could have made him so panicked? I know I'd be thinking twice after a warning like that.
Absolutely. It's a question that hangs over the rest of the story. It adds to the intrigue. So they ignore the man's pleas and continue their walk. But the atmosphere changes. It's subtle at first. Strange murmurs carried on the wind, a faint glow flickering in the distance. Then they hear it, the sound of footsteps, approaching, following them through the darkness.
It's like a scene from a horror film.
Yeah.
You can almost feel the chills running down your spine.
They lose their earlier nonchalance. It evaporates. And it's replaced by a raw, primal fear. They make a split-second decision, driven by pure instinct. They run back toward the cemetery, the same cemetery they'd found so unsettling. They're seeking refuge within its crumbling walls.
Imagine that, finding safety in the very place that scared them at first. It really shows how terrified they must have been.
They huddle together, hearts pounding, every sense heightened. The smell of burning hangs in the air. The footsteps get louder, closer. You can imagine the sensory overload, the overwhelming fear that must have gripped them. Just a moment of pure vulnerability, tracked between the unknown horrors of the woods and the unsettling aura of the cemetery. And then, as suddenly as they started, the footsteps fade, swallowed by the silence of the night.
It must have felt like an eternity before they dared to move, before the silence felt safe.
Yeah. Eventually, they cautiously emerge from their hiding place. The air is thick with tension. The smell of burning lingers like a ghost. As their eyes adjust to the darkness, they notice something chilling. Footprints in the damp earth leading away from the cemetery, the same direction the fleeing man had taken.
A physical trace of their pursuer, a tangible connection to that warning they dismissed so easily. It makes you question reality.
Yeah, it blurs the line between rational and supernatural, doesn't it? Shaken, they head back to the hotel, hoping for some sense of normalcy.
But I imagine the events of the night had already changed how they saw things.
Exactly. Upon their return, they meet an elderly man at the reception desk. He sees them, their faces filled with terror, and his own demeanor changes. Fear and concern cloud his features as he starts to pray for them, muttering something about their encounter.
This is where the legend of the Santa Compaña comes in, right?
Mm-hmm.
The elderly man recognizes their brush with the supernatural, and he feels compelled to warn them.
Exactly. He explains that they might have encountered the Santa Compaña, a ghostly procession of hooded figures that wander the Galician countryside, especially under a full moon. These figures, shrouded in darkness, carry a burning bone torch, a symbol of impending doom.
Just the image is enough to send shivers down your spine. Those hooded figures, the ethereal glow of the torch in the darkness, you can see why this legend has persisted for so long.
It's a powerful symbol of mortality, of the unknown forces out there, just beyond our perception. The elderly man explains that if you cross the Santa Compaña's path, they offer you the burning torch. To accept it means joining their procession for eternity, wandering the night forever.
So how do you escape such a fate?
Well, there are whispers of ways to protect yourself. Drawing a circle on the ground and standing inside is said to ward them off, as is hiding and praying for their passing.
It's interesting how the cemetery, a place of fear, became their sanctuary, a place to hide from the approaching unknown. But how does the cemetery itself fit into the legend of the Santa Compaña? There seems to be a deeper connection.
According to local lore, that isolated cemetery is more than just a burial ground. It's a final resting place specifically for victims of the Santa Compaña. Those who couldn't escape, who succumbed to their touch, are laid to rest in this secluded, forgotten place.
It's a chilling picture. A cemetery filled with the souls lost to this ghostly procession, hidden away, almost as if to contain their presence. And what about that fleeing man? His warning, his terror, his disappearance, it all adds to the mystery.
Yeah. The man's fate is unknown. Did he manage to escape the Santa Compaña once, only to be drawn back that night? Or was there something else he was running from? Something more earthly?
It makes you wonder, was it a genuine encounter with the supernatural, or were they caught in a web of fear and local legends, their imaginations heightened by the atmosphere?
That's the question, isn't it? We're left to ponder the possibilities, to weigh the evidence, and draw our own conclusions. Those tangible details, the footprints, the smell of burning, they hint at something more, something beyond the ordinary.
It's the kind of story that stays with you, that makes you question what you think you know about the world. And it reminds us that even in seemingly idyllic settings, unease can lurk beneath the surface, waiting to be unearthed.
And that sometimes the most frightening things are those we can't explain, the mysteries that continue to haunt us long after the story is over.
It's fascinating how these legends, these whispers of the supernatural, can become part of a place.
Yeah, like the landscape itself holds the memory of these tales, passed down through generations, changing how people see things.
Like an invisible layer of folklore on top of the real world. And the Santa Compaña is a great example. It's not just a spooky story, it's woven into Galician culture.
Some think the Santa Compaña shows our fear of the unknown, death, those forces we don't understand. Others see it as a reflection of the anxieties people had back then. A way to make sense of bad luck or weird happenings.
Makes you wonder if there's any truth to these legends. Could there be some real thing that people have seen as supernatural?
Possibly. Lots of myths and legends come from real events or things in nature. Maybe there's something about Galicia, the atmosphere, the way the light and shadows play, that leads to these spooky events.
Or maybe it's just suggestion. If you grow up with these stories, if you believe in the Santa Compaña, you're more likely to think strange things are supernatural.
It's a mix of belief, psychology, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit of the unknown. That's what makes these stories so interesting. They challenge what we know about the world, make us think about what's real.
And what about that vacation part? Juan Luis and his friends wanted to relax, get away. And they end up face to face with something they can't explain.
It reminds us that even in places that seem familiar, even idyllic, there are hidden things, mysteries to uncover. It also makes you think about the places we go, their history, the stories that might be hidden there.
It's like every place has its own secret history, its own echoes of the past. And those echoes can be unsettling. That night at the Mondariz cemetery. But their story reminds us that there are still mysteries in this world, things we can't explain.
Mysteries that capture our imagination, challenge our perceptions, and remind us that the world is a much stranger and more wonderful place than we often think.
So as we wrap up this episode, we ask you to think about the possibilities. Weigh the evidence and come to your own conclusions. Was it a real encounter with the supernatural? A brush with the Santa Compaña? Or just fear and imagination taking over? The answer, like the truth itself, may always be a mystery.
And if you like tonight's look into the world of terror and urban myths, subscribe to our channel for more. We'll be back soon with another journey into the unexplained, the uncanny, the things that go bump in the night.
Until then, keep your senses sharp, your minds open, and remember, sometimes the scariest things are hidden in plain sight. And don't forget to like this episode if you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening to Terror and Urban Myths.